Greetings, fellow seekers of truth. In our inaugural episode, we embarked on a journey through the Genesis creation story, marveling at the grandeur of the universe. Today, we'll venture off the beaten path, exploring the second book of Enoch, a text brimming with mystical insights. Chapter 24 to 32 within this enigmatic book offer a captivating alternative perspective on the 7 days of creation, filled with celestial beings, angelic hierarchies, and the intricate workings of the divine plan. Prepare to be amazed as we delve into these profound and often overlooked passages. And the Lord summoned me, and said to me, Enoch, sit down on my left with Gabriel. And I bowed down to the Lord, and the Lord spoke to me, Enoch, beloved, all that you see, all things that are standing finished, I tell to you, even before the very beginning, all that I created from non-being, and visible, physical things from invisible, spiritual. Hear, Enoch, and take heed these my words, for not to my angels have I told my secret, and I have not told them their rise, nor my endless realm, nor have they understood my creating, which I tell you today. For before all things were visible, physical, I alone used to go about in the invisible, spiritual things, like the sun from east to west, and from west to east. But even the sun has peace in itself, while I found no peace, because I was creating all things, and I conceived the thought of placing foundations, and of creating visible, physical creation. I commanded in the very lowest parts that visible, physical things should come down from invisible, spiritual, and a oil came down very great, and I beheld him, and lo, he had a belly of great light. And I said to him, Become undone, Adoil, and let the visible, physical come out of you. And he came undone, and a great light came out. And I was in the midst of the great light, and as there is born light from light, there came forth a great age, and showed all creation, which I had thought to create. And I saw that it was good. And I placed for myself a throne, and took my seat on it, and said to the light, Go thence up higher and fix yourself high above the throne, and be a foundation to the highest things. And above the light there is nothing else. And then I bent up and looked up from my throne. And I summoned the very lowest a second time, and said, Let Arcas come forth hard. And he came forth hard from the invisible, spiritual. And Arcas came forth hard, heavy, and very red. And I said, Be opened, Arcas, and let there be born from you. And he came undone. An age came forth, very great and very dark, bearing the creation of all the lower things. And I saw that it was good, and said to him, Go thence down below, and make yourself firm, and be a foundation for the lowest things. And it happened, and he went down and fixed himself, and became the foundation for the lower things, and below the darkness there is nothing else. And I commanded that there should be taken from light and darkness. And I said, Be thick. And it became thus. And I spread it out with the light. And it became water. And I spread it out over the darkness, below the light. And then I made firm the waters, that is to say, the bottomless. And I made foundation of light around the water. and created 7 circles from inside, and imaged the water like crystal, wet and dry, that is to say, like glass, and the circumcisions of the waters and the other elements, and I showed each one of them its rod, and the 7 stars, each one of them in its heaven, that they go thus, and I saw that it was good. And I separated between light and between darkness, that is to say, in the midst of the water, hither and thither, and I said to the light that it should be the day, and to the darkness that it should be the night. And there was evening, and there was morning, the 1st day. And then I made firm the heavenly circle, and made that the lower water, which is under heaven, collect itself together into one whole, and that the chaos become dry, and it became so. Out of the waves I created the rock hard and big, and from the rock I piled up the dry, and the dry I called earth, and the midst of the earth is called abyss, that is to say, the bottomless. I collected the sea in one place, and bound it together with a yoke. And I said to the sea, Behold, I give you your eternal limits, and you shalt not break loose from your component parts. Thus I made fast the firmament. This day I called me the first created, Sunday. And for all the heavenly troops, I imaged the image and essence of fire, and my eye looked at the very hard, firm rock, and from the gleam of my eye the lightning received its wonderful nature, which is both fire in water and water in fire, and one does not put out the other, nor does the one dry up the other. Therefore the lightning is brighter than the sun, softer than water, and firmer than hard rock. And from the rock I cut off a great fire, and from the fire I created the orders of the incorporeal 10 troops of angels, and their weapons are fiery, and their raiment a burning flame, and I commanded that each one should stand in his order. And one from out of the order of angels, having turned away with the order that was under him, conceived an impossible thought, to place his throne higher than the clouds above the earth, that he might become equal in rank to my power. And I threw him out from the height with his angels, and he was flying in the air continuously above the bottomless. On the 3rd day, I commanded the earth to make grow great and fruitful trees, and hills, and seed to sow. And I planted paradise, and enclosed it, and placed as armed guardians flaming angels, and thus I created renewal. Then came evening, and came morning, the 4th day. Wednesday, on the 4th day, I commanded that there should be great lights on the heavenly circles. On the first uppermost circle I placed the stars, Chrono, and on the second Aphrodite, on the third Aries, on the 5th Zeus, on the 6th Hermes, on the 7th lesser the moon, and adorn it with the lesser stars. And on the lower I placed the sun for the illumination of day, and the moon and stars for the illumination of night. The sun, that it should go according to each constellation, 12, and I appointed the succession of the months, and their names, and lives, their thunderings, and their hour-makings, how they should succeed. Then evening came, and morning came, the 5th day. Thursday. On the 5th day I commanded the sea that it should bring forth fishes and feathered birds of many varieties, and all animals creeping over the earth, going forth over the earth on 4 legs, and soaring in the air, male sex and female, and every soul breathing the spirit of life. Friday, on the 6th day, I commanded my wisdom to create man from 7 consistencies. 1. His flesh from the earth. 2. His blood from the dew. 3. His eyes from the sun. 4. His bones from stone. 5. His intelligence from the sweetness of the angels and from cloud. 6. His veins and his hair from the grass of the earth. 7. His soul from my breath and from the wind. And I gave him 7 natures: to the flesh, hearing; the eyes, for sight; to the soul, smell; the veins, for touch; the blood, for taste; the bones, for endurance; to the intelligence, sweetness, enjoyment. And I conceived a cunning saying to say, I created man from invisible, spiritual, and from visible, physical nature. Of both are his death and life and image. He knows speech like some created thing, small in greatness, and again great in smallness. And I placed him on earth, a second angel, honorable, great and glorious, and I appointed him as ruler to rule on earth, and to have my wisdom. And there was none like him of earth, of all my existing creatures. And I appointed him a name from the 4 component parts, from east, from west, from south, from north. And I appointed for him 4 special stars, and I called his name Adam, and showed him the 2 ways, the light and the darkness. And I told him, this is good, and that bad, that I should learn whether he has love towards me or hatred, that it be clear which in his race love me. For I have seen his nature, but he has not seen his own nature. Therefore, through not seeing, he will sin worse. And I said, after seeing, what is there but death? And I put sleep into him, and he fell asleep. And I took from him a rib, and created him a wife, that death should come to him by his wife. And I took his last word, and called her name Mother, that is to say, Eva, Eve. Adam has life on earth, and I created a garden in Eden in the east, that he should observe the testament and keep the command. I made the heavens open to him, that he should see the angels singing the song of victory and the gloomless light. And he was continuously in paradise. And the devil understood that I wanted to create another world, because Adam was Lord on earth, to rule and control it. The devil is the evil spirit of the lower places. As a fugitive, he made Sotona from the heavens, as his name was Satanael, Satan. Thus he became different from the angels, but his nature did not change his intelligence, as far as his understanding of righteous and sinful things. And he understood his condemnation and the sin which he had sinned before. Therefore he conceived thought against Adam. In such form he entered and seduced Eve, but did not touch Adam. But I cursed ignorance. But what I had blessed previously, those I did not curse. I cursed not man, nor the earth, nor other creatures, but man's evil fruit and his works. I said to him, Earth you are, and into the earth whence I took you, you shalt go. And I will not ruin you, but send you whence I took you. Then I can again receive you at my second presence. And I blessed all my creatures, visible, physical, and invisible, spiritual. And Adam was 5.5 hours in paradise. And I blessed the seventh day, which is the Sabbath, on which he rested from all his works. All right, this was the creation story as told from God to Enoch in the second book of Enoch, which is non-canonical in either Jewish or Christian canon, meaning is not considered scripture. It's not sacred text, it's not official. It might possibly be just a story, but nonetheless is a beautiful story that I wanted to tell you. I wanted to read to you this story because I loved it. The first time I read it, the emphasis on the thought of creation, it was so beautiful. And I loved when it says, I alone used to go about in the invisible spiritual things, and I found no peace. Oh, like, poor God. Like, he was there in the invisible, in the spiritual, with the angels and all the love and light and the singing and the music. So beautiful, but he had no peace. And he conceived the thought of creating something physical, something visible. And when he said, I conceived the thought of placing foundation, like he wanted to create something visible, tangible. And I recognized the first time I read this, coming from tarot myself, I recognized in the wand, the fire element, the spark, the need for God. He wanted something. And then the sword, the air element, because he had that need, because he found no peace. Then he conceived the thought. And then with the cups, the water element, he poured the emotion. He loved this thought, this creation. It took him 6 days to make everything, and he cared for it. He showed the sun and the stars their way. He showed Adam good and bad. Like he was pouring emotions. And then with the pentacle suits, with the earth element, it all became real. It all became concrete. So I really saw in this process of creation all the 4 elements of tarot, and I thought it was very beautiful, that I could find a liaison between this, something so mystical like tarot. I found that in the religious story of creation, so I thought it was funny. And then I googled Adoil to see, and it says is a luminous aeon, an agent of creation in the Slavonic apocalypse. And he says that it's this entity existed before creation. It was summoned by God to bring the world into existence. And because it says, let me read it for you, if I found it. Let the visible come out of you. And it was great light. And basically this is the Big Bang theory. He says Adoil had a belly of great light, and then the visible came out of it. It's basically describing the Big Bang. And I loved it when he says, and I was in the midst of the great light. Which, even if you're not religious and you have a scientific approach to creation and you believe in the Big Bang theory, you still need to recognize that it was a miracle that happened. And that because of that explosion, life was created. So the fact that God said, I was in the midst of that great light, really speaks to me about the Big Bang Theory and the fact that, which other way you want to look at this, God was in the midst of it. So I love that. And Arkas means origin. And it says, an age came forth, which again is this aeon, just like Adoil. And to me, it was a reminder about time and the fact that most people, I had a friend who came to me and she said, but do you really believe the world was created in 6 days? Well, time is relative, So in this story of creation, we say 6 days, but 6 days in God time can possibly be eons, like 6 billions. Like 1 day could be 1 million year, 1 billion year. Like, what I say, like time is relative. So it can totally be 6 days of creation. And God time, in Earth time, it might be exactly what scientists say it is. One other thing that I wrote down in my notes is again how many times we see that God imaged the image. He thought the thought. He conceived. He commanded this wisdom. Like there is so much thought into it. Like he really, like it's so beautiful to think, he had this need inside, this spark, this desire, and then he thought about it. And then he put emotions inside. He loved this creation. I loved when he says at the end, and I blessed all my creatures, visible and invisible. Yeah, it's so beautiful. And one thing I want to say, because I said in the previous episode, my theory about the fact that the serpent was actually an angel, in here we have that. The devil is the evil spirit of the lower places. And we have the first mention of Satan in here. And he says, the devil understood that I wanted to create another world because Adam was Lord on earth to rule and control it. And there is the jealousy of the angels. They didn't like the idea that God was creating this world and put a human to rule it. They were not happy. And it says that the devil conceived thought against Adam. In such form, he entered and seduced Eve. So he entered that world, the visible world created by God, the Garden of Eden. He entered in the form of a serpent and seduced Eve to create trouble. They wanted man to fail in the eyes of God, wanted God to punish them. I really believe this. God cursed ignorance, which I do as well. I hate ignorance, but that's another story. And and I did not curse man, nor earth, nor other creatures, but man's evil fruit. Which aligns with what we read in Genesis in the previous episode, where God is not like massively angry. I think he was open to the possibility of men fail the test and disobey. We read it even here in this passage, he showed Adam what's good and what's bad. Humans have free will. But, failed the test, disobey, he took the prohibited fruit, and God had to banish him. He banished him from the Garden of Eden, but he clothed Adam and his wife. It still behaves like a father, like you need to leave the house, you failed at school, you got expelled, now just go find a job. But, it's not gonna throw a child out of the house naked, still it's gonna give him a luggage with his clothes, probably give him some money and give him direction. And God is the same, Adam and Eve failed in his eyes, but still he clothed them and showed them out of the garden. And I think it's beautiful. And one more thing I want to mention is in regards of the angel that conceived thought against Adam. This was important to me because I've heard many times before that the angels have no free will. The angels are simply messengers of God. They have no free will. They have no mind on their own. They are just there to obey God's command. And I never liked it. I hate this interpretation. Made no sense to me. And in fact, they can conceive thought on their own. They can go against the will of God. That's why they disobey. That's why they took wives with the daughters of the humans. I have other things to say, but we need to wait the next episode because this is something we can discuss later when we talk about Cain and Abel. I think it's everything for today. I just really wanted to bring to you this story again because I personally loved it. I love the emphasis on the thought of creation, how much God loved us, and He really thought about this world, and He put His heart into it, wanted everything to be perfect. He created the years, the month, and the hours, and the stars need to go this way, and the sun that way, and the moon that way, and the waters need to be enclosed. Like, so much thought, so many details. I just loved it. This story is beautiful. Probably it's even better than the original one in Genesis. I just really like it. And so it's everything for today. Thank you for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao for now.